Welcome to the S.O.A.P video series from Oak Tree Community Church in South Bend, Indiana. We have been working our way through the book of Judges, and we need to put a disclaimer right here at the beginning. We're finishing the book of Judges, and this is easily PG-13, if not R-rated.
For material.
But we're talking, if we were putting an MPAA rating to it, this is R-rated for graphic violence, for sexual violence, for just
and
stuff.
even last week and the week before were kind of tough too. And I know I have a tendency to laugh, through it when it's very serious. And I think we both were, and I don't want anybody to think we don't care about this. We do. Right. It's just it is so bad. Yeah. You either got to laugh or cry.
Well, it's one of those things. We were talking. It's one of those things that if you took this out of its, like I said with Samson, if we just take this out of its Bible and just read it, it's like, what in the world? And this week is even more so. Right. If you didn't know this was from the Bible, right? You would. I mean, you could. This is a movie script.
This is Israel. This is why. Well, God doesn't want these people.
This is nowhere close to anything that Israel should be doing or should be taking place in Israel. And some of the stuff that is said or done in here, you almost might mistake for slapstick comedy, or a parody or satire or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But to say it's real.
God isn't in their lives, right? So there was two key things that from last week. There was no king. So not that the king is the moral compass, but I do think that a leader does have a moral compass, and the rest of the people under them generally follow whoever the leader is, good or bad. Right. And then the second thing was each man decided what was right or wrong. Yeah. God wasn't in there at all, so they're just faced with the problem. Well, obviously we'll do this.
Well, we saw somebody appointing his son as a priest, and this other. Where are the priests? Where are the moral leaders? Where are the godly people? They're not here. Right. I mean, and these last few chapters, if you've never read the end of the book of Judges, put your seatbelt on, because you're going to be shocked at what comes out of this. The fact that this is in the Bible, right? I mean, we've seen some pretty ugly stuff, but this, what we're about to look at, we'll read this is pretty graphic stuff, pretty bad stuff.
Yeah, it is. So last week we did Samson, and then we ended with a guy by the name of Micah, who has a shrine in his house, and he had his son as the priest, and then he found a Levite, who probably wasn't a priest, but he is now the house priest.
He's the house priest.
And he kind of shows up all along in the story this week. So
chapter 18 starts again with that phrase that you already mentioned. In those days, Israel had no king. The fact that it's said so quickly the last time it was said, in those days, Israel had no king. Each man did what he considered to be right. Now we read it again. In these days, Israel had no king. Uh-oh. I mean, that's sort of like,
that's the.
Didn't I just hear this? Yeah. What could be worse than this?
Yeah, and so now we're in the tribal area of Dan, right? And Dan is one of the 13 tribes, so they have an area, but Dan's got a big problem. Yeah, right. Dan has the promised land, so this is their area. Yeah. They got other people living in it, and they haven't been able to get those people out.
For 300 years, they have not been able to get the people. I mean, this is the land that Moses told them they could have. Joshua parceled out to them, and they have been homeless for 300 years.
Yeah, so they come up with an interesting to-do about it, right? I mean, there's no king. We can't go to the king, help us get the land. Right. We can't go back to God because apparently we aren't praying, and we can't go back to God. Right. So they decide, we should scope out some better land and move. Yeah. So nobody thought God might have a problem with this?
Well, not to mention that it's one of the other tribes' land.
There's some that maybe wasn't in use yet.
That looks like pretty good hill country. That's within our bound. Yeah. We're just not going to talk about that.
Yep. So they pick 5 capable men, and I love that word, capable men. You have no idea what that means, but I mean, they can handle problems as they come along. Yep. And they ask them to go out and spy on the new land. So they travel, and they actually spent the night at Micah's house.
Of course.
Because he has a shrine and a priest there. they asked the Levite, "Hey, is our mission going to be successful?" And I don't know what the Levite did, but he came back with, "Yes, of course it will be."
Well, not just yes, of course it will be, but the Lord will be with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Did we even actually ask God?
Right. So it might be made up, but here's your $20. So the five arrived at their destination where they were going to, and they saw that there was people living there, but these people were living, it says, securely. And the concept there was nobody was attacking them, right? Because, these guys...
Undisturbed, unsuspecting, far away from people. It was...
Right, which means we can attack them.
Right, yeah.
So that's what they do.
Let's go find the most peaceful people and area we can so that we can take it over, because obviously we haven't been able to take over the land we're supposed to have.
So they go back to Dan. They raise an army of 600 men, which is probably why they couldn't take over the land, right? That's just not very big with the numbers that we've been throwing out.
It's not a big tribe. Yeah, it's never been a big tribe, right?
They set out. Of course, they go by Micah's house again. Let's rob it.
Did you know that there's all this silver and idols and an ephod here? And you know what we should take?
All of it. And the priest. The priest. Because we need a priest.
Well,
and the priest was
any...
happy to come along.
Yeah, the ephod's not going to do any good without the priest. The idols aren't going to do any good without the priest. So let's kidnap the priest too.
Yeah.
That way the Lord will definitely make our mission successful.
Yeah. So later on they get stopped by people. I assume Micah was in there too. But and said, "Hey, what are you doing? You can't do this." And they said, "What are you going to do about it?"
Yeah.
Each man determined for themselves what was right.
And there's a little bit of logic to it, because the Levites like, "I don't know if I should do this." And they're like, would you really rather work for one household or for a whole tribe? I mean, come on. You could be like the guy in our whole tribe. He's like, "You're right,
Yeah, so the 600 came to the appointed land, burned everything down, killed everybody, rebuilt it, and started living there.
Yep.
And the story seems over.
Well, they're worshiping, they're worshiping the idol and everything. So this was one of the first tribes really to fall into idol worship. And they... the tribe of Dan, and I realize that I have a name that's similar to that.
Was I going to mention?
The tribe of Dan is not ever from Genesis on forward has never been the top of the list. They've always been sort of like the scallywags of the.
Nice. So it gets worse here. I guess we just power through it, right?
Yeah, chapter 19 is pretty ugly. I mean, there's no way around it.
Yeah, so a Levite...
Not the same guy.
Yeah, different guy, but he was living in hill country, acquired a concubine. Yep. So again, there's some problems there and what was going on here. The concubine got mad and left and went to Bethlehem, where she was from. Mm-hmm. He left to go get her, and he took along a servant and 2 donkeys. Mm-hmm. They... at least repaired whatever problem they had, and the 3 of them were now traveling back home. Mm-hmm. And they spent a night at Gibeah in the Benjamin's tribal area. Mm-hmm. And as we talk, when people spend the night at places, there's a whole thing in their civilization that we need to talk about, because it's kind of foreign to us. And that is, if somebody is staying at somebody's house, one, it's an honor for that person, but 2,
to host them.
Yeah, to host them, and it's their job to keep them safe.
Yeah. This isn't Southern hospitality. This is like
this is another
Middle Eastern hospitality on a completely different level. When I welcome you into my house or my tent or whatever, I am like basically taking responsibility for your life.
Right, which needed to be done.
Yeah.
So here's where the bad part starts. Well, one is this old man was the only one that even offered.
Yeah.
Which the Middle Eastern people would be offended to hear that.
Yeah.
I can't believe our city would do that.
Yeah.
And then this old man, turns out that he seems to just be a migrant worker from some other area that showed up. So really nobody in the town was going to help. So the townspeople surround the house, and they say, "Hey, old man, send the guys out. We want to have sex with them."
Yeah.
Just say it as nice as possible. And this may remind you a lot too of Lot.
Yeah.
Right? In
Sodom and Gomorrah back in Genesis 19.
Something very similar happened there.
You know, what's interesting is I find it, and out of, whoever broke out the chapters or whatever, this is Judges 19. A lot happened in Genesis 19.
Oh,
I mean, this is
interesting.
like, deja vu almost,
Yeah. So the Levite who went to Bethlehem to get his concubine throws a concubine out the door.
Yeah.
Here, have her.
Yeah.
So questions about how much did he love her? Right, all that.
He's saving his skin at this point.
Yeah, the town spent the night raping her. She dies on the porch.
There.
So he takes her, and when he gets home, it gets worse. When he gets home, he carves her up into 12 pieces. And he mails these pieces to, I don't know if it's to the 12 tribes.
Seems like it's probably to one to each tribe or whatever, with a little note that says, look at what, our relatives.
Let's have a discussion.
Yeah. Right. So everybody gets upset. How could this happen in Israel?
Right.
Have you read your history recently?
So the nation of Israel definitely rotting.
Yeah.
Some people are going to come together and try to make it right. And we'll see that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So in chapter 20, everybody has the attention now.
Yeah. Keeps going.
An army of 400,000 Israelite soldiers are assembled, and the Levite explains what happens to them, and the tribe of Benjamin says, no, that's not what happened. None of this happened.
Yeah.
We're not listening to you guys. So
we wouldn't do such a thing, that sort of thing, right?
So the tribe of Benjamin, now they have to raise an army. So they raise an army of 26,000 sword-wielding soldiers. So we basically have 26,000 against 400,000.
Yeah.
It's not going to end well.
It's not really good odds.
Yeah. So the Israelites ask God, hey, who should lead the charge? Which is kind of cool, right? This is at least the second, if not third or fourth time.
Well, in chapter 1, they asked who should lead the charge against the Canaanites, right? Which tribe?
So Joshua died. There was nobody in charge. Who should lead?
What tribe should be in front? And God said Judah's going to be in front. So we haven't seen God, really many showing up much, but here we go. We're going to ask him who should be in charge of this, because obviously we got to take revenge here.
Right.
And he said Judah again, because Judah in Genesis 49, when Jacob, now we're going way back, Jacob is in Egypt still with his sons. Jacob hasn't died yet, and as he's blessing his sons in Genesis 49:10, he says the scepter will never leave the tribe of Judah. This is why Messiah comes from Judah, David comes from Judah. It is the royal tribe, and even though there's no king, God still looks at Judah as the tribe that's supposed to be leading.
Yeah, so interesting that you brought up God in here, because God does play in chapter 20. He has a role in here.
Yeah.
Right. So he tells them, Judah should attack or lead. So the 400,000 go against the whatever I said, 26,000, and 22,000 Israelites died on the first day. So on the army of 400,000.
Yeah.
So they come back. God, this isn't quite what we expected.
Yeah, we thought this was going to be.
What do? Do we attack again? And God says yes. So the next day, 18,000 of them died. So now they basically got spanked for 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
They ask God again, do we attack again? And God says yes, and you're going to be successful this time too.
Well, because it's also in verse 26, they wept and sat there before the Lord. They didn't eat anything that day until evening. They offered burnt sacrifices. And it's like
God has their attention now.
He's finally got their attention after how many pages and decades, right?
Yep. Israel won. 26,000 Benjamite warriors were killed.
Yep. Basically, all but wiped out the tribe of Benjamin.
Right.
Almost, not completely. Right. We've still got chapter 21.
Yeah. So chapter 21, all the rest of, and when I say the Israelites, it's really everybody but the tribe of Benjamin, even though Benjamin is part of Israel. The Israelites say, look, none of us are going to allow our daughter to marry a Benjamite.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
Yep.
And then the people were also weeping because, like you said, in a day, they lost a whole tribe. 3 days.
Almost a whole
tribe.
They
lost a whole tribe, and through civil war.
Yeah.
Through themselves.
Yeah.
Which is worse.
Right.
Right. So
they came up.
There's men who needed wives, and the rest of Israel wants to give them wives because we need to repopulate this tribe. And we got to get this tribe back.
This whole tribe be gone.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's the problem.
But we all vowed that we're never going to give our daughters to them for wives.
Right.
So they took account. Is there anybody who didn't take that vow? Just checking, right?
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, we didn't take that vow. All right, your daughters.
Yeah.
We're not going to give our daughters.
We're going to have some party, and guys are just going to basically kidnap your daughters.
Okay, so they're not going to willingly give them because that wouldn't look good, and that it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
But what if we stage a kidnapping so that everybody saves face, and I'm sure God will be happy with that.
Yeah, so that's what they did.
But it protected the tribe, and we didn't lose the tribe of Benjamin.
So, where's the tribe of Benjamin today? Are they in their part of the promised land, or are they in the part they moved to?
So all 10, 12, 13, really, if you count the Levites, all 12 or 13 of the tribes, as far as we know, exist somewhere. But the land of Israel is not broken up into tribal lands right now.
Okay.
You've got so many others who are living there. There's no way that you have that. The next time that'll happen is we see in Revelation 7, 12,000 in the tribulation after the church is gone, 12,000 men from each of 12 tribes. Interestingly, Dan's not mentioned there. Apparently there's will be protected first in the tribulation, and then Ezekiel tells us that the land in the millennial kingdom, the land will be parceled out again for each of the tribes.
Okay.
Once everything changes, the topography and everything. So right now you couldn't. I mean, you have to take an Old Testament map and lay it over modern day Israel to see where everything is, but it's not.
Okay.
So
what we're seeing here is I think we're at the end of the spiral, right? There's a total moral collapse of the nations
that
has happened.
Yeah, the next thing that would happen after that, if we were following through chronologically, Samuel ends up being the last true judge. Mm-hmm. He anoints the first real king, right? We've got Saul, and then we move into that.
Right.
But even the priestly system, we haven't really seen the priests much here. When we get into 1 Samuel, we find out about a guy named Eli
and his sons.
And his sons are a real piece of work, right? But what that does is that tells us what's been going on with the priestly system,
exactly.
Right? So yeah, we're at the end of the book of Judges. There's a little bit chronologically more that would go into 1 Samuel, but yeah. Now, next time, we're not going to go into 1 Samuel. Next time, we're actually going to go into the book of Ruth, because chronologically, Ruth sits in Judges. We're not sure exactly where. Can sort of, using the chronology in chapter 4, and we'll talk about this next time, you can sort of place it, but you're not sure exactly where. But it does happen during the book of Judges. And so it's sort of what we would call a complementary book to the book of Judges. Okay. And we'll talk about that next time.
Well, I look forward to it.
Because you like starting new books.
Yeah, I like starting new books, and I like being done with this one.
Definitely why you're ready to get done with this one. As we've said throughout, we don't want our homes, our churches, our nation to follow this downward spiral. And of course, we have a whole lot more help with the indwelling Holy Spirit and the Bible and some other things, the cross, the resurrection, that they didn't have at that time. They were supposed to have a priestly system that wasn't functioning. We don't have to worry about that. We've got so much more. So use this book as a warning, right? Use this book as a warning, and stay faithful in no matter what situation you find yourself. And hopefully that is an encouragement in a really, really, really crazy, bad ending of a book here. Next time we'll go to Ruth, though. That's fun.
Bye, everybody.